today's special guest, 𝗟𝗩𝗘𝗧𝗦𝗢𝗡. Episode 11, The Drummer, the Banker, and the Broadcaster.
Greetings to the worldwide Gretsch community. My name is Lucas van Gretsch, and I would like to welcome you to this 11th and final installment of Gretsch Heritage. For those of you tuning in for the first time, I am what you would call a modern-day member of the Gretsch family. It's my mother's brother, my uncle Fred Gretsch, who is the current owner of Gretsch. And it's my great-great-grandfather, Friedrich Gretsch, who started the company all the way back in 1883. I'd like to start off today's show with a shout out to a special member of the Gretsch community who is going through a particularly challenging time at the moment. 15-year-old Angelo Giordano, seen here playing his Gretsch kit. Angelo recently had a random seizure and was rushed to the ER where they discovered a tumor in his skull. He was operated on June 28th. Of course, don't want to see things like this happening to anyone, and certainly not to a 15-year-old. I wrote to Angelo a little bit before the surgery, and he talked about how he was scared. Apparently, the surgery, though, has gone very well, and he's now recovering. So please send your best wishes to Angelo and his family at this time. You can follow his progress on Instagram at ALG_429. This, my friends, is the end of the road for Gretsch Heritage live stream programming. And as we've moved forward chronologically through time, we spent the first 10 installments talking about my family's gradual and steady rise to prominence in our musical instruments empire throughout the late 19th and 20th century. However, in this final installment of Gretsch Heritage, we shall look at a slightly darker chapter, and that is of Gretsch's sudden tragic fall from grace in the mid-1960s. As many of you may know, Gretsch was sold to Baldwin in 1967, an event that ended the first golden age of Gretsch, and thus ending the scope of this Gretsch Heritage livestream show. For now, this Gretsch Heritage livestream shall serve as, I hope, an entertaining and comprehensive overview of Gretsch in the early days, hopefully forever accessible in this digital format on YouTube and Facebook. So when we roll the clock back all the way to the mid-1960s, of course you have to take a look at February 9th, 1964, which is when the Beatles appeared on the Ed Sullivan Show. And this event created, as many of you know, a seismic shift in the musical instruments business as the entire world was mesmerized by Paul, John, George, and Ringo. Suddenly, everyone wanted to play an instrument. Fortunately, Ringo was playing Ludwig drums, but I saw also on today, Mike Fasano made a post saying it was Ringo's birthday. Happy birthday, Ringo. You are forgiven. Ringo was playing Ludwig drums, as many of you know, but Ringo's performance didn't only boost the sale of Ludwig drums, but rather boosted the sale of all drum brands. Of course, George Harrison was playing a Chet Atkins model Gretsch guitar, and the Gretsch guitar business suddenly jumps from selling 25 guitars a day to well over 100 guitars a day. Gretsch drum production had to be moved to a different building, to Gretsch Building number 5, in order to make room for guitar production. Business for Gretsch was absolutely booming at this time. Let's take a closer look at the drums from this era. Gretsch at this point is making 6-ply drum shells exclusively, and is really a brand that is associated with jazz drummers and marketing kits like this progressive jazz kit seen here. When Ringo emerges on the scene with his Ludwigs, that further emphasized that Gretsch drums were perhaps missing out on the birth of rock and roll. Gretsch Drums, however, tries to win over rock drummers and introduces for the first time this rock and roll kit with a 16x16 floor tom and 2 8x12 mounted toms. Pretty hip with those 2 identical 8x12 inches on that bass drum. I'm digging that. Luckily, the great Charlie Watts would appear around this time playing his Gretsch kit and reinforcing the fact that Gretsch drums were versatile and could be played in rock and roll as well. When you look through the 1966 Gretsch catalog, or any Gretsch drums catalog from this era, you're really looking at a drum business at the absolute height of its powers. I would argue that Gretsch Drums in the 50s and 60s is the greatest drum company that the world has ever known, and that there's a reason why drummers and drum collectors always refer back to this era at Gretsch in the 1950s and 60s. And there's a reason there's such a strong fraternity amongst Gretsch artists surrounding the brand at this time. And there's a reason why drums from this era are worth so much. And there's a reason why the best drummers on the planet were all playing Gretsch drums. It's because of a magic and an energy surrounding Gretsch drums that was undeniable. So at this point, I would like to introduce or reintroduce this man, the great Phil Grant. The title of today's installment is The Drummer, the Banker, and the Broadcaster. And Phil Grant, of course, is the drummer I am referring to in the title. Now, we've talked a lot about Phil Grant in this show, as he is perhaps the individual most responsible for making Gretsch drums what they were in the 50s and 60s, and for making Gretsch drums what they are today. Phil Grant was the artist relations and brand manager for Gretsch drums back in the day. Many of you watching the show may know Gretsch's current artist relations and brand manager, Andrew Shreve. So Phil was doing Andrew's job back in the day. And like our current guy, Andrew, Phil Grant back then was an extremely hard worker, a drummer, and very, very passionate about the Gretsch brand. Phil started with Gretsch just after World War II and was a world-class drummer playing for the Goldman Band. Even Elvin Jones would often go watch Phil Grant perform and claim that he was a master percussionist in any capacity, on the level of Billy Gladstone. So if you saw him play, there wasn't any doubt in your mind about his ability. Phil was very proactive in recruiting drummers by always going out to the New York clubs and finding the best drummers for Gretsch, which is why the top drummers of the 1950s and 60s were all playing Gretsch. He was the driving force behind the countless Gretsch drum nights and was truly a master of ceremony for all things related to Gretsch drums. Now, at the same time, we have the Gretsch president and owner of Gretsch, my great uncle, Fred Gretch Jr., who was a very different figure at the company than Phil Grant. Fred Gretch Jr. is the banker I'm referring to in today's title, as his true interest lied in the banking world, and he was even elected chairman of the executive committee for the Lincoln Savings Bank. Fred Gretch Jr. was beginning to have health problems and had a wife and daughter at the time. He didn't want to leave a factory operation to them. So in 1967, Fred Gretch Jr. sells the Gretsch company to Baldwin for $4 million, which is the equivalent to $32 million today. Now, $32 million is a lot of money, but I'm certain that this was a very difficult decision for my great uncle. He was a wonderful and talented leader of the Gretsch company, and I know he understood how important this family business was. In my mind, the Gretsch brand is a force, a tapestry made up of an incredible family, incredible employees like Duke Kramer and Phil Grant, amazingly talented artists, and of course, an amazing product. All of these elements combined in an optimal fashion and really came to expression in the 1950s and 1960s. And I am certain Fred Gretch Jr. was well aware of this. My own uncle, Fred Gretsch, tells the story of how he went to lunch with Fred Gretch Jr. around this time at Peter Luger's Steakhouse, and it was here where my uncle learned of the sale of Gretsch to Baldwin. My uncle was just a kid at the time, in his early 20s, and said, "Why don't you sell it to me?" Fred Gretch Jr. said that my uncle didn't have the capital to buy a company like Baldwin. And that was the end of the conversation. At this point, my uncle vowed to one day bring the business back into the family, which he eventually does some 17 odd years later in 1984. So the sale of Gretsch to Baldwin in 1967, of course, came as a shock to Gretsch Drums brand manager, Phil Grant, seen here on the right, together with Papa Joe Jones and expert drum builder Richard Dixon. Phil Grant dreamed of one day taking over the business and leading it into the future. Phil Grant tried to hang on under Baldwin ownership, but found that to be very difficult. As compensation, Fred Gretch Jr. gave Phil Grant $5,000 worth of Baldwin stock, which Phil Grant would use as down payment for a store he bought in Middletown Springs, Vermont. Disheartened and disappointed, Phil Grant vowed never to work for anyone else again and worked the remainder of his career at his general store called Grant's, which sold a little bit of everything, but no drums. Phil passed away on July 19th, 2002, at the age of 87, but recently his sons, James and R. Webster, established the Philip Osborne Grant Scholarship for percussion students at the Juilliard Conservatory. Phil Grant, you got a bit of a raw deal with the selling of Gretsch to Baldwin in 1967, but you are remembered with this scholarship, which your sons have organized, and you are certainly remembered and celebrated today on this Gretsch Heritage Show for your remarkable contributions to Gretsch drums. We see you, my friend. Turning to the Gretsch family at this time in the mid-1960s, we come to the end of the reign of Fred Gretsch Jr., seen here in the third row. You see here, he only had one daughter, Helen Gretsch. And since we are still in the old days, it was only truly acceptable to leave a company to a son, and thus the sale of the company. It's during this time that the Gretsch family loses its matriarch, my mother, Maxine Sylvia Gretsch, who was married to my grandfather, William Gretsch, who was president of Gretsch from 1942 to 1948, when he tragically died of cancer at the age of 41. Fortunately for me, they were productive and had 4 children before his passing, including my mother, Gretchen, seen here at the bottom. I've always been fascinated by my grandmother, Maxine Gretsch, a woman whom I've never met and who died of ovarian cancer when my own mother was only 16 years old. Looking at old pictures and family archives, I see how elegant and beautiful she was. And though it may sound strange, it's the same elegance I see and hear in the Gretsch instruments from this era. It's a force and an energy that I like to think runs deep in my family and the family business. Born in 1917 in Joplin, Missouri, she attended Northwestern and studied speech and broadcasting for radio. While studying at Northwestern, she meets my grandfather, William Gretsch, in 1937, who was running the Chicago office at the time. So many telegrams have survived from this courtship, and the two fell in love very fast. Now, most of you watching today may know and play Broadkaster drums, which were first introduced in 1939, just after my grandparents met. I am certain that my grandfather came up with the name Broadkaster. I am certain that my grandfather came up with the name Broadkaster since that was the career that his new girlfriend, Maxine, wanted to pursue. So if you were wondering about the first Gretsch Broadkaster, it's not a drum, but rather this woman you see in the video right here, Maxine Gretsch, the true first Gretsch Broadkaster. My grandparents moved from Chicago to New York, and Maxine became the first lady of Gretsch as my grandfather, William, becomes Gretsch president in 1942. Maxine was a very social and lovable person, and as we can see, sorry. Forgot to put my phone on silent here. Sorry about that. Maxine was a very social and lovable person, as we can see from the countless letters and telegrams left behind. She valued her family and her friendships above everything else in life, and sadly lost a brave battle to ovarian cancer at the age of 46 in 1964. Although neither she nor my grandfather never made it into their late 40s, they left behind these 4 wonderful children, seen here from around this time. From left to right, my mother Gretchen, my Aunt Charlotte, and my Aunt Katie, and my Uncle Fred. I love this picture because everybody is smiling, despite some incredibly challenging times for both the Gretsch family and the Gretsch business. And that, my friends, is this Gretsch family member's take on the great Gretsch family in the mid-1960s. Now, we certainly have come a long way, telling the Gretsch story beginning in 1873 and moving all the way forward to 1967. Certainly lots has happened with Gretsch drums since 1967, but those are all stories that shall perhaps be told by someone else at another time. Thank you for listening, everybody. With that, we shall switch gears and move along into our Gretsch Artist Feature segment. One of the major themes of this Gretsch Heritage live stream is, of course, the art form of drumming and the passing of this art form from one generation to the next. In our conversations with modern-day world-class drummers like Morgan O'Grane, Cindy Blackman Santana, and Mark Juliana, they all refer back to their Gretsch drumming idols from the early to mid-20th century as a reference point. They consistently refer to the sheer power of Tony Williams, the feel of Art Blakey, the technique of Max Roach, and the smooth sensibilities of Philly Joe Jones. Today's Gretsch drummers incorporate all of the influences from the Gretsch artists of the past into their own playing style and put their own spin on it and pass the tradition forward to the next generations. It's this multi-generational exercise that makes Gretsch such a unique brand. The Gretsch heritage is a living and breathing entity that is always evolving and moving forward. And you can hear it when you hear modern day Gretsch artists perform. Our next guest is such a clear example of this, arguably one of the greatest working drummers on the planet right now. This gentleman has the force of Tony Williams in his playing, but also the dynamic control between his hands and feet that you find with Philly Joe Jones and Vinnie Kaliyuda. But he also has a uniqueness and creativity to his style that is completely his own, a style that will no doubt be passed on to future drummers of the Gretsch heritage. How lucky is Gretsch Drums to have this guy on the roster, and how lucky am I to introduce him to this Gretsch Heritage live stream. Without further ado, please welcome to the show the Hungarian hurricane Gretsch artist Gergo Hlaei.
Hi.
How was my pronunciation?
It was pretty good.
Pretty good. Thanks.
Thank you.
I wanted to do
Hey,
the Hungarian pronunciation instead of the American pronunciation.
Right. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Good to see you, my friend. Good to see you. You look great. Love the glasses.
Thank you so much. Good to see you too. You look awesome. I mean, I love your hat. I mean, it's always different, right?
Yeah, I wore this one a lot. It's one of my favorites.
Okay.
So Gergo, this is a Gretsch history show. And so how about we start off with taking a couple of Gretsch artists from the past that have influenced you most. Can you maybe talk about a few of the Gretsch drummers from history that you often think about, and maybe talk about some of the albums that have influenced you through time?
Absolutely. The first album where I really noticed there are Gretsch drums was one of my drum teachers showed me an album with Buddy Rich and Max Roach. It was a vinyl released in 1959 or something like that. It's a drum battle album, phenomenal. And Max was playing on his Gretsch. Kit and Buddy was playing with his Ludwig. And my drum teacher at that time, he still has it, a drop G Gretsch kit.
Oh, okay.
And he
nice.
said, this is how Gretsch sounds like. And I became instantly in love with the sound. And fortunately, because I was in a regular music school, and that music school had a music camp in the countryside of Hungary back in the days. I got the opportunity to play during the whole week of the camp on his drums, mostly on this drop G Gretsch kit, 2012, 13, 16. And that changed everything. I got the sound what I was looking for in my whole life. And, of course, I started to listen to all those albums with Tony Williams, Miles Davis albums with Tony Williams. And then later, I became in love with Frank Zappa, and Bozio was playing with his black Gretsch kit with Zappa in 77 and 78, right before Vinnie, when he started to play with Frank on his yellow kit. So, and all these albums, which are my favorite ones, has Gretsch drum sound on it. And, it just marked in my brain, in my heart. So I think, and, I was a kid. But for some reason, turning back to the drum camp, there was a lot of other drums like Rogers, Tama, Ludwig. But for some reason, the look and the resonance and the touch of that Gretsch drums was beated all the other drums for me instantly.
And how old were you?
I was 8.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and Ben, you started a few years before then, right?
Well, I started to play when I was 3, and I went. I mean, my mother brought for a drum teacher called Ivan Nestor. He was very, very famous and good drum teacher. He still is in Hungary, and the school and his aspect of music was so jazz oriented. So you know, I was really into jazz music in the very early ages. So you know, I got this vibe and the magic of improvisation, focused music, and you know, the freedom, the communication between the musicians so early. You know, so it's everything was just against of directed and organized music. You know, because we are talking about really wild free jazz album with Cecil Taylor or Ornette Coleman. Or, you know, the early 70s Miles music with those 20 minutes long songs, you know, with full of freedom. And I really loved it. And it you know, made me who I am today, you know.
Wonderful. So you mentioned freedom and communication. And so I want to ask you, you know, you're special in a way because you're one of the few Gretsch drummers that I can think of that was actually born and raised behind the Iron Curtain. And so you're talking about attending a drum camp in Hungary when it was communist and learning about jazz and freedom of expression and so forth. But I imagine communist countries, maybe it's an environment where you're not exactly encouraged to think freely and to play jazz music, or was that not the case?
Well, musicians had at that time, the communism era, that they had freedom, especially instrumental musicians, you know, like jazz musicians, because, you know, the government had no idea what the heck is that, you know, that time, really, you know.
Right.
And also I was also fortunate because of my parents, because they both were working for the Hungarian national radio station. Both were sound engineers. So they have that possibility to get music from the West culture. So, you know, not every time legally, you know, so you know what I'm talking about. So
yeah,
they could get some good vinyls to home, good copies of cassettes, you know, and I was eating music and I was eating jazz music, and they recognized so early, I'm so open to this. So especially my father and my brother, who's much older than me, forced me to in a good way, forced me to listen this and this and this, and being more open-minded with any kind of music. And I'm so thankful for that. Yeah.
Yeah, so you said your brother, who's much older than you. Okay, so
12 years older, yeah.
Yeah, so he was 20 when you were 8, and he was showing you the way.
Oh yeah, and he's not a musician; he's an artist too. He's you know, he's making sculptures, but he has no ears for music. He's just a music lover, and he really showed me everything, you know, from any kind of genre, what he thought is original and could help to make my view more wide musically, and he did it. Wow. He did it well.
Wow, that's so amazing, and how, you know, you are so blessed to have your brother show you the way, you know. And you think about where would you be now if you didn't have that brother, you know? Totally. That's one thing I wanted to ask you about, was if you suddenly, Gergo, lost all your chops and connections in the music business, and your brother didn't raise you to become a musician, an open-minded musician, what line of work do you think you'd be into right now?
I think martial artist.
Martial arts.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Absolutely.
Really? Okay. So is that something that you do at all, or is that a hobby?
I did for 5 years. I was learning Shaolin Kung Fu in the late 90s. Yeah. And you know, I just had to decide I couldn't do the two things together, because music life is just so different compared to martial art life, which is all about being super calm and super precise with everything with your own life. And it's just was a little bit against of the music life I was living at that time. So I stopped it. That was one thing. And the other thing, it was really traditional way of Shaolin Kung Fu. So we were practicing on woods, and metals, just to having a stronger arm. But after a while, my hands were hurting, so I had to stop. Yeah.
Well, you said this martial arts was kind of, it made you be calm and precise, which was different than drumming. But when I watch your drumming, those are some of the words that come to my mind, are how calm your playing is and precise your playing is.
Well, that was my plan. Yeah.
Yeah. And I noticed today you had a very interesting post on social media. For those of you who follow Gergo, you can check it out. He posted a video of him playing, and one of your fans had done a transcription of a phrase that you played. And I thought that was wonderful. It was a very complex, was it a fill, I guess, or it was maybe a 5-second phase?
It was a 2 bars long fill in 7/4 or 7/8 or something like that. Yeah, it was just spontaneous, and the guy transcribed it. Incredible.
Yeah. It must be fun to. There's Dave Anania writing Gergonomics. That's wonderful. It must be fun to be you, to look on social media and see that people have transcribed your playing, and to see these fun videos of drum teachers watching and doing reaction videos to your playing. Do you get a kick out of all that stuff?
Well, it always shocks me. I mean, I'm seeing people who really spending their time to analyze drummers and making this huge and really hard transcription. I'm so much respect to them. One guy made a transcription of my 𝗟𝗔𝗡 live performance, which is a 9-minute long song, and he made from A to Z to them. Incredible. And their time signature changing, a lot of chops, of course. Incredible.
Yeah. So that you were a part of the 𝗟𝗔𝗡 Live. So this was NAMM 2019. Okay.
No, you're right. 2020. Yeah, the last year.
Right,
Yeah,
so
sorry.
The last one. So I think Ash Sohn also did some stuff. Stanton Moore.
Yep.
A lot of Gretsch guys present in there. Of course, the Gretsch 𝗟𝗔𝗡 connection is strong and alive and well. And that was an incredible performance you put on for the 𝗟𝗔𝗡 Live. It was just, it's so fun to watch. And from the very beginning, you could see people watching immediately. You were just laying down a very simple groove, and people immediately caught on and were grooving with you. And that must have been so much fun.
It was a beautiful day. One of the most beautiful day in my life, to be honest. Seriously. I mean, playing with those musicians, playing for drummers and drum lovers, and the whole vibe was just so good, and it was all about music. It wasn't a competition. It was all about music. Yeah,
beautiful. Well, you can definitely feel that when you watch the videos. It was incredible. And that was in LA, and you're from Hungary. Now you are in Barcelona. So you're someone who's kind of all over the place geographically with your work and life schedule. Is it irrelevant for you where you actually live, whether it's in LA or Hungary or Barcelona, or does your actual home address make a difference for you?
Oh, well, yes. Okay, Hungary, it's my home country. I was born there. Most of my friends from the long time living there. A lot of iconic Hungarian musicians I was playing when I was a kid, and I'm still playing with, they're still living there. So when I'm in Hungary, we have summer houses there. So with a small village, with local friends, village friends who are beautiful people. And but I was playing with everybody, and I did what I could for my career in Hungary. So I was always, planning to move to the country where my favorite music is coming from, and where all my idols are living, and my favorite musicians are living, and because of the level. And this is Los Angeles for me, LA. And but between LA, we moved to Barcelona just to get the vibe of West Europe. And Spain is a Mediterranean country, especially this part. And Barcelona, I'm always saying Barcelona is the best town to live and the worst town to work. The music life here is so different. Spain is so amazing with their own traditional music, flamenco. But those music genre I really love, it just doesn't exist here. But to being in a very good part of the world, in a city which is so safe, very healthy, so clean, culture-wise is amazing, the food is amazing, and so clean and so healthy, and sea, ocean. We needed that, and then we moved to LA, and I started to work with those people who were my idols when I was a kid.
Yeah, amazing. Let's talk a little bit about that stage in your career where you went from being a successful Hungarian drummer to a successful international drumming star, the point where your skills and ambitions sort of outgrew the geographical boundaries and perhaps musical boundaries of your homeland. How old were you at this time?
Well, I started to play with the biggest and most successful Hungarian musicians in Hungary when I was 12. So, when I became adult, and my early 20s, I was the most called drummer in Hungary. And and I was also started producing albums for others, composing for others, and this incredible position didn't really change after a while, because I just got the maximum what I could in that small and beautiful country. A lot of things changed. Actually, almost everything changed when I was an endorser for a different cymbal company, and I played on their festival back in 2009. I was 31, so it's quite late compared to the young kids these days. That was my very first endorsement. And because of that moment, and because of that festival, and because of the internet, my name just started to spread out the world. Slowly, but it started. And also because of the international connection with musicians and bands, I started to play more in the international bands too in the same time. So, which is good, because my name spread out, not just a clinician or just a drum shredder. In the same time, they got my name as a band member too, because it's mostly my focus is music mostly. I'm first. I want to play music. That's the best thing what could happen with a musician and the drummer.
Yeah. For sure. So, when you look at today's Gretsch drum roster, which Gretsch drummers are you a big fan of, and who would you say on today's current Gretsch drum roster, who is your closest friend on the drum roster?
I can easily pick up Gary Novak. We became friends many years ago, and when I moved to LA, he helped me a lot. He gave me a lot of gigs what he couldn't do, so I was subbing him many times, and some album came where two or three drummers, Novak, Vinnie, and myself. So there are a couple of albums where we are three playing in different songs. So definitely Gary Novak. And Morgan Agrin. I'm one of the biggest fan of Morgan.
I'm the biggest fan of Morgan.
No, I'm the biggest fan of Morgan.
I'm the biggest fan.
Morgan is very special, and his musicality and his way of thinking, and his composing skills and his some engineering skills. He's one of a kind.
Yeah.
But also, we are in a good relationship with Zach Danziger too, who is a totally hardcore innovator for me.
Yeah.
Mark Juliana, of course, from the younger guys. They're all amazing.
Very nice.
So amazing, so inspirative. Yeah.
So this, you mentioned that Gary Novak, Vinnie Kaliyuda, and yourself have played on several albums. The one album I'm thinking of here is the Arc Trio album that you played on. Now this is a newer release, right?
I think it released 2 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, great. And so your name is on the cover. Did you get in trouble from Gary and Vinnie that you got to have your name on the cover?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think this was the first album. No, maybe the second, but this was seriously a jam in my life, having my name besides Vinnie and Novak. It's just, it's like, it's a childhood dream.
It's a beautiful, beautiful album. I strongly recommend those watching to go check it out. Just from, I listened to it for the first time this morning, and just from the very first track, it's an absolutely gorgeous album to listen to, and very complex but very beautiful. It's not just complex, but it's a sort of a nice blend of musical complexities, but also some really beautiful moments that really come together in a special way. And it's primarily your drumming. I think Gary plays on 1 or 2 tracks and Vinnie on 1 or 2 tracks, but most of the tracks you're playing, which is probably why your name is on the cover, right?
Yeah, exactly. Vinnie plays 1 track and Novak 2 tracks, and we all played on Gretsch Drums.
Yeah, very nice. It's the Gretsch album.
Yes,
so
exactly.
I think we have a picture of Max and Tony and Vinnie together, and let's see if we can take a look at that. Oh, they're not together, actually. Sorry, but we have some individual pictures of them, and we can maybe show one at a time. That would be a great picture. Of course, the great Max Roach. And how has Max Roach influenced your drumming style?
A lot. I mean, turning back, when I mentioned that duo album with Buddy Rich, that was serious. Buddy was a powerhouse, but Max for me was a little bit closer. It was just deeper for me, and all his favorite moments, those pairs and ostinatos, what he was playing during his solos, that all these things, and playing over that. And also as a sideman, playing behind the biggest musicians that time. He was a massive inspiration when I was a kid.
Yeah, very
Absolutely.
nice.
And also his snare drum, that 4x14. I still need one.
Well, you can borrow Ash Zone's. He has one.
But I want to own it.
Well, you're going to have to talk about price with Ash. So let's, how about Tony Williams? Now we've got Tony is obviously another great influence on you. You talked a little bit about the way he's impacted your playing. How has Tony Williams affected you as a drummer?
Oh, Tony, Tony was special. He was also one of a kind, gone too early. His work with Miles was remarkable. He was a pioneer. His musicality, his endless organic way of beautiful, spontaneous playing is just, is just unbelievable. And I'm so lucky because I saw him live
Oh, wow.
in the Miles Davis Memorial Tour in '93, maybe. He was playing with the yellow Gretsch kit.
Wow.
And
Nice.
that was one of the most beautiful drum solo I ever saw. It's so melodical.
Wow.
You know, he was playing like, he was playing on the drums like a, I don't know, like a piano or a marimba or a vibraphone. You know, it's just,
Yeah.
I remember the movement, what he was starting to, and he built it for 15 minutes. I got goosebumps now.
Yeah.
And in the same time, you know, the hardest swinging ever. I mean, I was shocking because, you know, I haven't seen so much famous drummers in videotape that time. And I thought, you know, swinging is like, you know, just using the point of the stick, and, you know, it's just a soft thing. And then I saw Tony, and he was more like crashing than swinging, like like a heavy metal drummer. It was amazing.
Yeah.
It was amazing. Yeah. Tony was the man.
Yeah.
And
that was,
and I have to tell you, sorry to interrupt you, but I found a yellow Gretsch kit what Cindy Blackman owned 10 plus years ago, and I bought it. It's from 1976. It's almost like Tony's. 14 by 22, 8 by 12, 9 by 13, 14 by 14, 16 and 16, 18 by 18 with a 6.5 snare. That's a gem.
That's Cindy Blackman Santana's old drum set.
Yes.
Okay, and it's a 70s kit with the drop G or stop sign.
It's stop sign. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's nice. Have you told Cindy that you have that kit?
No.
She might want it back.
Maybe. But I know several big names I cannot mention because of the endorsements. They wanted to buy it from me.
Oh, yeah. Come on, say their names.
No.
So, okay, how about moving to the Grand Emperor of Gretsch drummers, Vinnie Kaliyuda?
Oh, yeah.
Has the great Vinnie influenced you as a drummer and as a person?
Oh, man. I mean, Vinnie, it's hard to play drums without Vinnie for everyone. I mean, you know, Vinnie is the GOAT. First time I've heard him was on the Joe's Garage album when I was 9 years old. And that thing what he was playing in Keep It Greasy in 1916 gave me a really totally different point of view of playing. And, you know, I started to dig Zappa's music that time very deep. And I just noticed that when Zappa hired Vinnie was 21 or something like that, 22. And I really, this is my favorite era of Vinnie. I mean, I have several favorite eras from Vinnie, but the most favorite one is this one, because on all those Zappa records, you can hear that incredibly strong connection between Frank and him, especially during Frank's guitar solos. You know, Frank Zappa, he wasn't a shredder. He was playing so freely and so spontaneous, mostly out of the rhythm. And Vinnie, because of his musical reactions, he made it clean and clear what you can transcribe rhythmically. And it's a genius sense of music. And also, you can hear that in that time, young Vinnie he's able to risk anything what comes in his mind in real time. So he was just so brave, incredibly endless, open-minded drummer. And for me, that changed a lot of things too. And later he's worked with Alan Horsford and of course with Sting and all those baked potato videos from the early 2000s. I mean, I remember back in the day, 98, when I got my first internet connection, and there was a website called houseofdrumming.com by Steve Holmes, and he collected a lot of videos because he shooted Vinnie in the baked potato with a video camera. So he has some stuff, and he posted it to this website. And because of the internet connection that time, it took 2-3 days to download a 1 minute long song from Vinnie. Right. And I was like, every day I went to the computer. Okay, 40%. Oh, okay, so it's 1 more day.
Yeah.
And when it's downloaded, I watched it. I don't know, 2,000 times. Yeah. It's like incredible. So Vinnie, he's the one and only Vinnie Kaliyuda.
Wonderful. And you talk about the risks he took as a player, and the spontaneity and sort of the reaching. One thing you see in really great drummers is them reaching for something that they sometimes can achieve and sometimes don't, but it's in that failure of trying to reach it that's so beautiful.
Yeah.
And that's something you see with Vinnie a lot. You see that it's like he's constant. The gas is always on the pedal to the metal. He's always reaching and pushing on his drumming.
Yeah, absolutely.
In a special way. So, but let's talk about your drive as a drummer. And I don't think that you could get to your level of playing without an enormous amount of drive. And what would you say has been the main driving force in your career? Was it a person, like a parent or a drum teacher, or was it a force that came from within you?
It was mostly me, to be honest. Because I'm in endless love with music, and I noticed that there are several subjects I cannot share even with my drum teachers, because we were thinking in different ways of music. And besides, I had, I think, 2 or 3 drum teachers in Hungary. Sometimes in the music camp I was mentioned in the beginning of the talk. I have that guy I was mentioned, Ivan Nestor, and then I was studying for a teacher called 𝗟𝗏𝗖𝗔𝗦, who had that time the biggest archive of drum videos, what I never saw before. So that was the first time when I went to his apartment, when I saw the Buddy Rich Memorial, Bozio, Steve Smith. I had no idea how this guy looks before that, And I just decided to study by myself and figuring out my own way of music, my own way of thinking of music, my own way of thinking of drumming. So amazing. Of course I've learned a lot with those other legendary musicians I was playing with, because they were older, much older, and they have a massive knowledge and a routine, and the situation where I was playing with them teach to me how this can work in a good way or in a professional way. So and my other teacher, and actually my biggest teacher, was music. I was listening to music 24 hours every day, and it's trying to figure out what's going on. What's going on? What's the connection between a soloist and between a drummer? How a drummer has to react for a piano player while the saxophone player is soloing on the front, etc., etc. So music was my biggest teacher and my mentor.
Wow, wonderful. Beautiful. So interesting to hear your response to that. And let's maybe talk about the future legacy of 𝗟𝗏𝗘𝗧𝗦𝗍𝗍. And we talk in the show about the passing of the drumming art form from generation to generation in the same way that you're talking about Max Roach and Tony Williams. And by this point, it's clear that you, my good friend, will have an impact on future upcoming Gretsch drummers. So how would you like to be remembered in the future? And what aspect of your playing would you like to see carried forward to future generations of Gretsch drummers?
Oh, well, my only, I just like to be original. That's all. I like the people, who will remind me as an original drummer, who has this Gergo style. That's all. And,
Nice.
and I always, I'm always saying the most important thing is making music anyhow. Be original and make music anyhow. Even you're a fast drummer or a heavy metal drummer, make music. Not just play on the instrument.
Wonderful.
Make music.
Yeah. Wonderful. Wonderful. So you are obviously a phenomenal drummer, and it's one of your strengths in life. What would you say is one of your weaknesses?
Oh, good question. I'm lazy sometimes to work out on my body. Maybe this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're a lazy guy.
Well,
I don't believe it.
I'm just talking about, my body. I'm talking about the gym. I'm just lazy sometimes to go to the gym. And, I love to spend my time with PlayStation sometimes, because that's the only moment when I'm not thinking about music, maybe.
Is that a weakness?
I don't know.
Is that a weakness?
I don't know. Maybe it's a hobby. It depends how much hour I spend with that thing.
Is playing PlayStation, that's a weakness?
I don't know.
Cool. And you must be really, I imagine you're pretty good at PlayStation because it's the same kind of, coordination required with the controller, right?
I think I'm good. I'm good with some games. Yeah.
Do you bring that with you when you go on tours and stuff like that?
No. When I'm on tour, I'm always focusing what I'm doing. And,
Yeah. Very, very, very interesting. Now, you're someone who's very creative with videos. Can you talk about your recent Gretsch video, which we filmed with you recently in this beautiful room? Where was that filmed, and how did you sneak into this room?
In our village in Hungary, called, there are two parts of the village. The smaller part called 𝗟𝗡𝗘𝗧𝗦𝗔, where we have a house, and the bigger part is called 𝗟𝗏𝗏. And 𝗟𝗏𝗏 has this beautiful room. It's a beautiful building by a famous architecture back in the 19th century, early 20th. And this room is just it was a kind of restaurant back in the years. And we have good connections with the heads of the village. And, we told them, hey, can we film there some things? And, I just posting it because maybe people have no idea how beautiful this room is. So, we got the chance to move in, and we filmed it, I think, in September 2020 when we were in Hungary. And my wife recorded it with my iPhone and with the gimbal. And I was just playing one take because I wrote a song, so I learned it. So it was just one take, and I mixed it, and I just colorized it a bit, and that's it. It's a
Nice.
gorgeous room. It's a gorgeous room in the gorgeous building in that village.
That's amazing. And your wife recorded it with an iPhone on a gimbal. I love that.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. Yeah. And it just goes to show that if you have a very interesting subject in a very interesting setting, it doesn't matter. It'll be beautiful no matter what kind of fancy camera you have or whatever is not important. I love that. I love that. So I'd like to congratulate you on your new signature snare drum. Do you want to talk about the 𝗟𝗩𝗘𝗧𝗦𝗢𝗏 snare, the signature snare? Why don't you tell us a little bit about this drum?
First of all, I'm extremely proud of this. Back in the years, my favorite snare drum was a 𝗟𝗩𝗘𝗏 𝗟𝗏𝗘𝗧𝗦𝗍𝗔 snare from 1989, which is 4.75 by 14. And then I started to use one of my all-time favorite snare, which is just a COB, regular COB by Gretsch, 5 by 14. And we were talking a lot with Andrew to figure out something special, more special, because I mentioned a little bit thinner snare than the regular 5. And I wanted something which still has a little, fat, but still not regular like a 5 by 14, and still not a piccolo, like a piccolo snare drum, like 3.5 something by 14. And Andrew came up with the numbers a year ago. Okay, how about 4.25 by 14? And I said, that's the thing.
Yeah.
And the look, this sandblasted look was Andrew's idea. I'm a 𝗕𝗥𝗢𝗘 guy, and also I believe 8-lug snare is the snare drum. I have only 8-lug snares, and that's it. And when they sent me the first prototype, it just came to our house, and I opened the box. I couldn't believe that's happening with me. And then, and it just hit it once. And I said, that's it. It's done. And, Andrew asked me, okay, hey, just let me know if you need anything changed, because it's just a prototype. And I said, no, it is what it is. It's ready. It's perfect. That was I was looking for. So it's Danny. And so I'm so thankful to Andrew and Paul Cooper to make this happen.
Yeah, it's really a testament to their effort that they made it right the very first time. That's incredible.
And it's a dream. I mean, I'm from a small country, and having a signature Gretsch snare drum, I never thought it would happen in my life. So it's unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Yeah. Oh, incredible. Well, and you also have sort of a signature kit. In my mind, at least, when I think of you as a drummer, I always think of you on this incredible orange kit. And can you talk a little bit about this drum set? Was this your first drum set, your first Gretsch kit?
No, this is my first Gretsch drum kit as an endorser. And this came to Barcelona. Paul Cooper built it, and this is my favorite from all. First of all, I think this is the most beautiful color I ever saw on Gretsch drums. And it's not that popular, and I'm happy because, it's my favorite color. So, I'm planning, okay, if I need more Gretsch drums in my life, it might be the same color. Because I really love this color. It's just extremely characteristic, and, it's very Gretchy. And the sound is just so warm. So when I became friends with Paul Cooper, and I asked him, hey, Paul, what did you think when you built this drum set? And he said, yeah, man, I was just thinking about you, check your videos. And I imagine who are you, and I built the drum just for you. So it's incredible. I love all my kits, but this one is special for me. It's my personal favorite. Yeah, it's
really nice. And like I told you yesterday, when I think of Tony Williams, obviously on the yellow kit. When I think of you, it's on the orange kit. This is, it's kind of like that's your signature look, you know, and it's just, it looks so great with you. And of course you can make any sound, any drum, any Gretsch drum sound incredible. But I mean, with the Orange Kid, it's kind of a nice identity to you and your aura in the Gretsch world.
Thank you so much. Means a lot to me. So I'm really planning to make some professional photo session with this kid too.
Yeah,
you know, just to have it. Yeah, I will. Yeah,
or just get your wife to take pictures with her phone. You know, that's probably...
yeah.
So let's talk about some current projects you're working on that maybe you'd like to promote. What are you recording these days? What are you working on?
Fortunately, I have a lot of remote sessions still. We recorded a great album with Arc Trio from Michael Schmidt. What we will release, I think, this year. I also recorded some things to Stu Ham, legendary bass player from Joe Satriani, and a lot of others. And also, I wrote a lot. I wrote a new album to my old cult Hungarian band called European Mantra. Also wrote several songs for our international band called the Electric Shock, which is a power fusion band, and I wrote a lot to that album. And for myself, when the lockdown came, I started composing pop music for myself.
Nice.
And you know, because of the lockdown, I wasn't able to go to my studio to play on my Orange Kid for 2 months. So the whole music designed by, you know, computer. So there's no live drumming. It's everything is programmed. And I called, you know, bass player and violin player, and there are 2 singers, Hungarians, singing in English. They wrote the lyrics. They're amazing. Daniela Szabényi and Matioka, she's a girl, she's a little girl, a young girl. My wife discovered her because my wife is a choreographer and dancer, and she discovered this young prodigy back in the years when she was 7 years old or something like that.
Oh, really? How interesting.
And we just noticed she can sing. Now she's 21 now or 22, and she can sing beautifully. And and I'm planning to come out with this, you know, and we are talking about kind of indie vibe pop music, you know, no instrument solos, short songs, deep lyrics with a lot of words, you know, we have to sing out for the people, and not difficult music, because that just came out, you know, that's what I felt when this lockdown just happened.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
So would this be like a solo album? Not really. Or...
No. It will release under a project name called Fresh Co. That's the actual name so far. FRESHO.
Yeah. SCO.
Fresh Co. Like CO.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. And you know, I think I have 258 gigs cancellations since the pandemic. My Russian tour in October just canceled 2 days ago. So who knows what will happen? So a lot of things postponed to 2022. We'll see. I'm staying creative, you know. I love my room. I love playing drums. I love recording drums for anybody, and I love composing music and playing bass guitar. That's what I'm doing.
Yeah, that's right. You're like a closet bassist, right? You love playing the bass.
I'm a bass nerd. I have 10 bass guitars.
Nice. That's so funny.
It doesn't mean I can play. I just love playing bass.
Yeah. So when you want to record your bass, or when you want to play bass, what drummer do you want to play with when you play bass? Who's the first guy you call? Gary Novak?
Well, no. If I'm a bass player, I think I call Dennis Chambers.
Yeah. Okay. Would he pick up the phone? Would he say yes? Who knows? Stay tuned.
Yeah.
Great. So, Gergo, where can people follow you online if they want to learn more about you?
Yeah, I mean, most of the famous social media platforms are active from my side, so it's they can find it on my Facebook pages, Instagram. I'm not using Twitter really, but I'm very active on Facebook and Instagram, and we'll see.
Yeah.
And I have a YouTube channel too. I'm
Nice.
trying to upload more things more often.
Yeah. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this show. Thanks for being such a wonderful drummer and a wonderful person, and so generous with your time with us. And boy, on behalf of the Gretsch family, we're just so happy to have you as part of our family and playing our drums and an important part of the Gretsch heritage moving forward. And thank you so much for that, Gergo.
Thank you so much, Lucas, and thanks for having me in the Gretsch family. And you have to know I'm the proudest and the biggest Gretsch fan ever.
Wonderful. Thank you, my friend. Take care, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Yes. So that was him, the main man, the Hungarian hurricane, 𝗟𝗣𝗑𝗧𝗦𝗢𝗏. And so now let's move on to this week's quiz question, which should be easy if you've been paying attention to the first segment covering Gretsch history in the mid-1960s. We've run out of t-shirts, so we'll be giving away a Gretsch timeline poster to the first 3 people who answer correctly to my email address, lucas@gretsch.com. And the question is, what is the name of the company that purchased Gretsch for $4 million in 1967? So I think we are slowly going to start winding things down here. Be sure to check out our other flagship live stream called Generations, which brings together 2 amazing Gretsch drummers, one veteran who's been playing Gretsch for years and one relative newbie to the family. And the next episode will be August 11th, and will include Ben Thomas and Dan McDougall. And then, of course, the grand finale of Gretsch Generations, which will be with Vinnie Kaliyuda and Keith Carlock on September 1st. So be sure to check that out. And special thanks to, of course, Jules Thomas and Andrew Shreve for being such incredible partners with me on this 11 installment long voyage that we've gone on together through the Gretsch heritage. What a pleasure it's been to work with the both of you. Super talented, hardworking people. I am very fortunate to have done this project with you, and extremely indebted and extremely grateful to you both. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. And also a special thanks to Scott Donnell and all the folks at DW really for being such great partners for the Gretsch family. And thanks, of course, to my Aunt Dinah and my Uncle Fred and the crew at the Pooler office. Also the amazing Gretsch Drums production crew in Ridgeland, South Carolina. Also special thanks to my wife, Papacia, and my daughters, Sylvia and Ramona. And lastly, special thanks to Opa, Richie, and Maggie, and my Aunt Katie, Gretsch, Happy and Ernie Copley, and all my beautiful Gretsch cousins. This one, too, is for Gigi. In the words of my Uncle Fred, be safe, be well, be musical, my friends. Good night, everyone.